Hi, my name is Mark. So when we're trying to play solos, we try to follow the chord changes and play selected arpeggios and triads and licks and try to figure out which scales work, which scales don't work. We try to figure out what kind of flavor each scale gives to the song. And don't get me wrong, that is important. In fact, important enough for me to have made a bunch of videos on those topics. But here's the thing, sometimes there's an easier and, depending on the song, a better way to approach a solo. Because I'm pretty sure my video is going to get copyright striked if I mention the name of the artist and the song that I was listening to. Let's just say that I was listening to Jonathan President's new song, Luminescent Source, and he played this little thing that made me think, okay, maybe this can be a good idea for a solo. I know this may sound a little bit weird, so let me just show you. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still may not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my content, you really should subscribe and turn on all the notifications. And since that may or may not work, I highly suggest you follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post that about my videos. Links for usual suspects like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter will be below, but in general, at Mark Guitar. Oh, and since you're down there, please consider leaving a like and perhaps share this video on social media, I'd highly appreciate it. But yeah, I guess now we can get straight into it. Okay, so if you don't know the song is in A Dorian, being the second mode of G major, and the chords are A minor, D major, G major, and C major. At some points before the chorus he goes for this B7, but you don't really need to worry much about that chord. And I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but if you're watching till now and you know nothing about theory or playing over chord changes, or you are unsure on how to play any of these sort of licks, you can 1. Use your ears, there's nothing better than your ears, but you can also check out some of the videos in the card section right there. But one thing you can listen throughout the song is this sort of lick. Again, I'm not sure if it's 100% correct, but it's something like this. Which isn't nothing fancy really, it's just this little funky note line. But something that makes it a little bit more interesting is that we're following the chords. Again, the first chord is A minor, and we're starting out on A. In fact, we're starting out with a grace note from G to A, but it's the same thing. And then we move to this F sharp, which is the major third of D. The next chord we're moving to, D major. And after that we move from F sharp to B. And B is again the third, but this time instead of D, it's the third of G, from the G major chord we're playing next. And after that B, we move to G, which is the fifth of C major, our next chord. So we're always playing something that sounds good with the chord. And because we repeat this lick a bunch of times during the song, we quickly get used to its sound. It's sort of like a pseudo melody within the song. And now you may be thinking to yourself, okay, that's cool and all, but how am I going to use that with soloing? Well, if we were just playing over those chords, you can take something like this, that's within the song, play it in your solo, but then add some variation. For instance, we start out with... You can maybe start it the same way, but then do maybe a blues lick, and then move to the next chord. So instead of doing... You can maybe do... And then the next one, you just move from F sharp to B. Instead of just moving from F sharp to B, you can perhaps do another lick or a little passage, and instead of landing on that B, which is the note we would normally end if we just played our regular melody, you can perhaps land on another chord tone. For instance, when we're playing this B, we're playing it over the G major chord. Instead of playing a B, we can perhaps play a B or a D. I don't know, something like... So just by doing a couple of modifications, instead of playing the same old melody, you just play it. And if we want to end that 4-chord loop, in our regular melody we would move from B to G. But now we can move, for instance, from G to C, or again do some sort of a lick. And any lick you have, either in G major or in C major, will work fine for this part. But just as a quick recap, before we just had this melody. And now you have something like. And of course, in the context of this particular song, it might sound a little bit too shreddy. And in a way, it mostly comes down to personal preference. But again, you don't really need to do something as shreddy as I did. You can perhaps do some more soul-y blues licks and take some breaks here and there and wherever. This is some sort of a little different approach, I guess. Usually when we're told to play solo or improvise something, we usually go to our minor pentatonic and play our regular licks, and again we either try to follow the chord changes or just play whatever comes to mind. But if you take something that's already there and change it a little bit, it can make you sound a little bit more like a pro, because the audience kind of knows what you're playing and starts thinking, wait, I've heard this before, didn't I? Maybe this guy really knows what he's doing. He doesn't just play random guitar shreddy stuff. But in a way, not only is it sort of melodic and something that follows the chord changes, but in many cases, unless this is something that you already do quite a lot, it will sound different from your regular playing and it will inspire you to play different things. But now you may be asking, okay, that's cool, but what if I'm playing a song that doesn't really have a very specific guitar riff or melody that I can copy and then remake? You have a couple of options then. One, you either follow the melody of the vocals, which will always sound nice. Or if you're allowed that sort of creativity, you can perhaps make your own melody. Again, let's just keep these chords just for consistency and because it's easier. And again, it can vary. You can do some sort of funky lick like this. You can do a more standard guitar lick, which works well against the A minor chord. Then when we move to the D major, you can slightly change the lick so that it fits in with the D major chord, like. Then when you move to the G major chord, again you can change that lick slightly so that it fits in with the G major chord, like. And the same thing for the C. And again, that can become your pseudo melody thing. Or again, if you don't really have a proper melody, you can make your own melody. Again, for a song with these chords, you can perhaps do something like. It sounds a little bit cheesy, but you get the point. And again, you can take that melody, perhaps start your solo with it, make the audience connect with it a little bit, then change it up a little bit. The sky's the limit. And since in this case we're playing over a chord progression that's pretty generic, again, tons of songs with this sorts of chords. If you know any other songs with those chords, you can quote the melodies from those songs and make your own melody a little bit more interesting. And when I mean quote, I don't mean taking melodies from other songs and putting them in your own songs. I mean something like just slightly hinting at another melody, and again, take caution with the subtle part of it. And again, doing this sort of method for soloing doesn't mean you can't do the other one. You can mix everything together into a melting pot and do this crazy solo. Just remember that if you only have like 4 bars to solo, you may not have enough time to play something that people can remember and then change it up a little bit, so that you're not playing the same thing, but people can recognize it as being similar to the first part you played. But as I mentioned in the beginning, there are no rules for this. So before we get to the outro, I just want to say, if you actually end up practicing or even doing any of this sort of things in your own solos or improvising, please film yourself playing it and then post it on Instagram and tag me on it. Not only will I see it, but I'll repost it and tag you on it. I'd really like to see what you guys can come up with. But for now, let's just get to the outro. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible. And if it was, please leave me a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? Also, if you have any suggestions for videos, I have this dedicated series called The 8, You Ask, I Teach. I know, pretty boring, generic, and self-explanatory title, but as the name implies, and as you can guess by the title, in that series I pretty much teach anything you guys leave in the comment section below. well, guitar and or music related, of course. So if you want to get your question answered, or you have something you want me to talk about and get a shout out, please leave it in the comment section below with the hashtag Yate. And as I mentioned before, it would be really cool if you guys could check out some of my other videos. I usually do lessons and discussions like this, but there are some other times when I take a look at a specific music theory concept and explain it so that most of you guys can use it. Or sometimes I take a look at a specific click from a guitar player that I think is interesting or a little bit different from what they usually play, and then transcribe it and break it down for you guys. Not for any particular reason, but some of the videos I suggest are, for instance, the Frank and Melodic of Frank and Melodics. Or maybe perhaps why your modes don't really sound like modes. And a bunch of other ones from my back catalog that you can check out. And again, I would highly appreciate it if you did, and subscribe if you liked what you watched. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow me on social media, perhaps share this video on social media. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and a comment for my Yate series in the comment section below. And yeah, cheers!